Welcome to the CNalysis podcast. I'm your host, Chaz Nuttycombe, the director of CNalysis. Today we're going to be going over the primary results here in the Commonwealth of Virginia last week for the statewide contest for the Democrats and for both parties for the House of Delegates. First, let's start with Virginia governor. It's no surprise, obviously, that Terry McAuliffe won handily, won with majority of the vote in the race for governor. I will say that he slightly outperformed my expectations. I thought that his ceiling was going to be something like 57%, but Jennifer Carol Foy and Jennifer McClellan, especially Jennifer McClellan, just really underperformed my expectations. And so as a result, Terry McAuliffe got 62% of the vote. Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax and Lee Carter didn't even get 4% of the vote. Obviously, the one race we got wrong in the statewide was the race for lieutenant governor. And, there wasn't a whole lot of data to work with here, unfortunately. I think I should have gone with a tilt Rasul rating rather than lean. And Hala Ayala's campaign was very shaky in the lead up to Election Day. But Ayala, if I recall correctly, did outspend Rasul on advertising. So it was probably a big thing that got her win. I will say that it was very expected that there would be this big East-West divide. I will say that Ayala's winning coalition went more westward than I thought it would. I thought, for example, like Buckingham and Fluvanna counties would go for Sam Rasul. I thought the line would be about there between East and West. But most surprising is that Hala Ayala won Fairfax County, or she won almost all of Northern Virginia. She placed first in almost all of Northern Virginia, while Sam Rasul did not. Sam Rasul had the Washington Post endorsement, and it turns out, after viewing this primary, the Post endorsement does not mean as much as it has in the past. So, congratulations to Hala Ayala for beating my expectations. In the race for Attorney General, Mark Herring, as we expected, did win the Democratic primary for Attorney General. I will say that Jay Jones got a little bit closer than I thought. I thought he was probably going to get something like in the low, like barely at 40%, maybe high 30s, but he got 43.4% of the vote. And I think he's in a really good position now to run statewide in 2025. I don't think we've heard the last from Jay Jones in a statewide bid. Let's go into the House of Delegates races. House District 2, Candy King, as we predicted, won. I will say that she won with more than I thought she did, or thought she would. She got 67, or really 68% of the vote, while Pamela Montgomery got 32% of the vote. This was a race that Clean Virginia, Michael Bills and Sonia Smith invested a lot in, and they had nothing to show for it. House District 9, this is the Republican primary. Ren Williams won with 63% of the vote, which is very surprising. Based on the people who I was talking to about this on the Republican side of the aisle on this primary, it was either A, Ren was going to squeak it out, or B, Ren was going to win handily. And Ren Williams won handily. Keep in mind, Ren Williams won with 63% of the vote against a long-term incumbent. Charles Poindexter has been in the House of Delegates since the late 2000s. So Poindexter just really got caught sleeping at the wheel here, and Williams ran the better campaign. House District 31, Elizabeth Guzman won with the majority of the vote in her primary. We expected this. We expected that Guzman would win, and as a result, we moved this race from lean to likely Democratic in our ratings last week. House District 22, Kathy Byron obviously was a shoo-in for re-election, and she won. So no surprise there. She got over 80% of the vote. House District 24, Ronnie Campbell. Again, we had this as a safe incumbent hold. Ronnie Campbell won with 87% of the vote. House District 34, Kathleen Murphy won with about 3/4 of the vote. This sounds about what we were thinking. We had this in our final ratings as Solid Murphy. House District 51, this was the one we had the most egg on our face. And the thing is, from everyone I talked to, nobody had any clue on this. Because, let's be frank, the Democrats are very likely to hold this seat. This is a likely Democratic seat. This is Hala Ayala's seat that she is vacating. And you had two Republicans who didn't really raise much money. And Tim Cox beat our prediction. Tim Cox got 76% of the vote. So that's the thing. There's just, I couldn't find anyone who knew anything about this. So that's part of the reason why we got egg on our face. And another reason was that we underestimated how much carpetbagging would actually matter in this seat. Jeff Dove, the former congressional candidate, moved into this seat, and that had a bigger impact on the race than we thought it would. So big congrats to Tim Cox for being our wrongest prediction. House District 36, Ken Plum easily won re-election with 77% of the vote against Mary Barthelson, who didn't really decide to run a campaign toward the end. We had that as an easy hold for Ken Plum. House District 68, now I will say Mark Early Jr. surpassed our expectations. He got 91% of the vote, which is hilarious because, again, he was running against Mike Dickinson, who's this local pariah in Richmond. And Mike Dickinson got 8.5% of the vote. So Mark Early had the biggest primary win out of all the House of Delegates primaries. We had Early as obviously the heavy favorite, but I didn't think he would get over 90% of the vote. So that was something I personally was laughing at on election night, given that it was Mike Dickinson getting just 8.5% of the vote. House District 38, Democratic primary, Kay Corey. I will say that Kay Corey, her primary, she only got 61% of the vote compared to some of these other incumbents. And that doesn't necessarily surprise me. We had this, I think it was either as a very likely hold for Corey or a likely hold. Compared to all these other incumbents who are getting primaries from challengers who are very heavily favored to lose, Corey only getting 61% was surprising. So I would say that this is a little bit of an overperformance by Holly Hazard. House District 45, this was a favorite with Elizabeth Bennett Parker beating Mark Levine, the incumbent who was running for lieutenant governor. Also, interestingly enough, in the race for lieutenant governor, Mark Levine actually carried his House district, which I did not expect to happen. He came in third place. I thought he was going to come in fifth, but I really guessed that the late money he put into the primary in these bids went further than I thought it would. Mark Levine, he only got 41% of the vote in his own House Delegates primary. We expected this to happen. We had this as a likely Elizabeth Bennett Parker win. House District 49, Alfonso Lopez, as we predicted, easily won. He got 70% of the vote. Karishma Mehta just didn't really have the campaign she needed to win in terms of having a well-run campaign. House District 72, we got this one right. This is in Henrico. We expected Christopher Holmes to win. He got over 70% of the vote. House District 83, this is the final GOP primary. Tim Anderson beat our expectations. And I don't even think Tim Anderson expected to win. He only won by 26 votes over Chris Stolle. And as a result, the House Republicans are in a worse position in the seat because Chris Stolle had the financial prowess, the name recognition to really make this a race that Republicans would have been favored in. But Tim Anderson ran to the right in this primary. He doesn't have the financial prowess. He doesn't have the name recognition. We should have had this as probably Tilt Stolle. Matt Colt Hall definitely beat me on this seat, saying Tilt rather than Lean. I went with Lean, which is a little bit heavier toward Stolle than what a Tilt rating is. But yeah, that was an upset. We got that one wrong. House District 50, this one was my wrongest Democratic primary prediction. I had Lee Carter as the likely favorite to win his primary. Now, Michelle Maldonado won with 44% of the vote, single-digit victory over Lee Carter, who I guess just didn't really run a campaign to win his seat. I'm not sure why he ran for governor, but yeah, Lee Carter will not be re-entering Virginia politics. He's already said so. I think he said he wanted to become a farmer of some sorts. I don't know whether he's going to or not. But anyway, regardless, congrats to Michelle Maldonado and her campaign for being our wrongest Democratic primary prediction. We still, again, we got 23 out of 28 of the primaries right between House delegates and statewide, which is about what I expected to get. I already said leading up to this that I expect to get a few primaries wrong, and I'm always better at predicting general elections and primaries, which obviously have far more volatile electorates. But anyway, House District 68, we had this as likely Dawn Adams win, and she won with 61% of the vote. That sounded about right. House District 71, I will say that Jeff Bourne underperformed my expectations. I thought he was going to get at least 80% of the vote, but he got 69% of the vote in his primary against some random guy. So I was surprised by that. Obviously, it's still a big win for him, but I thought he was going to be getting something like Lamont Bagby's margin in the district next door, House District 74. Bagby got 91.4% of the vote. So congrats to Bagby for having the bragging rights for that. But yeah, I thought Bourne was going to have a bigger win. But regardless, it's still a massive win for him. House District 79. This was one I'm so happy I got right. This was a tough one. I was fighting with my head and my gut on this. My gut was saying Ladarius Clark was going to win this. My head was saying Steve Clark was going to, or Steve Heretic was going to hold on. But I went with my gut on this, and I'm happy I did. This was a narrow victory for Ladarius Clark. He will be the youngest member. This is a safe Democratic district, so he's going to be in the Virginia House of Delegates. You can bet the farm on that. Ladarius Clark is just 26 years old. He's going to be the youngest member of the Virginia House of Delegates when he is elected. Big congrats to Ladarius Clark. House District 86, this was one we did get wrong. I probably should have had this as Tilt Samira. Ben Tribbett was more right on this race than I was. We still thought that Samira would win, eke it out, but he didn't. He narrowly lost his primary to Irene Shin. I had this as Lean Samira in my ratings. House District 89, that's Jay Jones's primary. Obviously, he was going to win this handily. He got 78% of the vote. House District 7, this was a tough one. I had this as Tilt Kits, and he won by single digits, so I'm glad I got that right. This is a solid Republican district. Derek Kitts, I bet on him because of his previous name recognition and ties in Christiansburg out in this southwestern Virginia district near Blacksburg. House District 66. Now, this was interesting because Katie Sponsler won with less than 60% of the primary vote against Leonard Harris, who had no money. He was a third-party candidate in 2019. The fact that Sponsler got under 60% here shows that she does not have a well-put-together campaign. And if the Democrats want to flip this seat, they have to swoop in and save her because she does not have a serious campaign. This is a double-digit Biden seat, but we're keeping this as Tilt Republican in our ratings. But the fact that Republicans are still slightly favored to keep an open double-digit Biden seat shows how poorly the Democrats have done in recruitment in this seat. House District 84, Democratic primary. This was another one where I had to go with my head and my gut. My head was saying Melnick. My gut was saying LeGuide. But I went with Melnick because of name recognition. And a little bit because of money. Melnick didn't heavily outraise LeGuide. But I picked Melnick in a Tilt Melnick rating, and I'm glad I did. We got it right. Finally, Linwood Blizzard easily won this primary in House District 99 in Northern Neck, 73% of the vote. I thought that Linwood Blizzard would win it. He did better than I thought he would, so big congrats to him. But yeah, overall, this was a very poor night for progressives in Virginia. the only silver lining was Steve Heretic losing his primary. So progressives have a lot of work to do if they want to actually be competitive in Democratic primaries in Virginia. It's going to take more than money. And obviously, Virginia is still, its electorate is still center left. And as a result, obviously, a lot of its Democrats are center left. So it's not just organizing. It's just really the Democratic primary electorate itself in many pockets of Virginia that tend to favor more moderate candidates. So there you have it. That is our recap compared to our predictions on the Virginia primaries. We had a poll that came out for the general elections here in Virginia. McAuliffe led by 4, Ayala led by 6, Herring by 7, and Democrats only lead by 1 in the House of Delegates. And keep in mind, if Democrats were to win the popular vote in the House of Delegates this November by just 1 point, they would lose the House of Delegates almost certainly. And that is mainly because of the maps being heavily favored toward the Republicans. Heavily favored in terms of population that favors them. These are 10-year-old maps. And in terms of, 3/4 of the map are Republican gerrymanders. So the poll is very interesting. I'm glad we got to do it. I hope we get more polls. I'm really sad that we have such a low amount of polls. There's only been 2 polls for Virginia governor. One's an internal and one's ours. That's it. So hopefully we get more that comes out. Virginia has very competitive elections this year, as we've seen. It'll be interesting to see the swings toward the Republicans. I still think that Republicans are going to make ground in Virginia, but I think Democrats are going to end up holding everything, the House of Delegates, the statewides. But I think Republicans would pick up, if I were to say today, 1 or 2 seats in the House. And then I think Terry McAuliffe is looking at anywhere between a 4-point win to an 8-point win. And then when it comes to lieutenant governor, who knows? When it comes to attorney general, I think there may be a chance that Mark Herring may actually do better than Terry McAuliffe. So there you have it. That is our wrap up of the Virginia primaries. Thank you so much for everyone who has stuck with us through this tumultuous primary season. We are going to be off the air for next week. I'm going to be moving places. You'll hear from me with a new podcast at the end of the month. Thank you so much for listening.